Leading off our coverage tonight is Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington. He's the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman Smith, thank you very much for joining us tonight. What is your reaction to the idea that the chairman of your committee feels he has completed his investigation?
I strongly disagree with it. I mean, to begin with, the video needs to be released. We need to see this publicly so that everybody can have an opportunity to evaluate it. The reason they will not release that video is because it's incredibly damning to their entire argument. So that needs to happen. Second, in the conversation with Admiral Halsey, which Mike Rogers and I were sitting next to each other during it, he did not say it had nothing to do with anything going on around these boat strikes, his decision to retire, that is. He said he had a very personal conversation with Secretary Hegseth and Chairman Kane, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and at the conclusion of that conversation decided that it was in his best interests to resign. That's an entirely different statement than saying it had nothing to do with any concerns he had about what's going on down there. Also, there was a very confusing explanation of the chain of command on these strikes, who had the authority to decide to target when. I've got 1,000 more questions, and a lot more investigation needs to be done. And based on what I've seen thus far, we need to investigate this for a possible violation of the law. Again, if they release the video, 95% of the public would agree with me on that point.
Was Admiral Halsey himself confused about the chain of command?
No, I don't think he was confused about it. It's just that it apparently bounced around from several different people. Sometimes it was Secretary Hegseth. Sometimes it was Admiral Bradley. Sometimes it was Admiral Halsey. And confusingly, sometimes apparently it was one of the MEU commanders, a Marine commander of one of the amphibious groups down there. Based on what? And what is the legal underpinning of this? It's also worth noting that the legal document, which again has not been released publicly, we've seen it in a classified setting that supposedly offers up the legal justification for these strikes, wasn't even written until September 5th, so 3 days after the September 2nd strike. And Admiral Bradley testified he didn't see it until November. So what was the legal authority that they were operating under, and what is the point of this entire mission? As I said, I got thousands more questions. This investigation is far from complete.
It's hard for me to imagine what could be in a legal memo that would have to be classified.
Nothing. Nothing. And there's nothing in this video either. Now let me amend that. The video itself, from the beginning of the operation to the end, is about 5.5 hours. That's from before the first strike to the second. They've already released the video of the first strike, and they've also released the video of, I think, at least 15 other strikes. So clearly you can release some of these videos without revealing anything sensitive. And the actual video of the minute or two before the strike, the second strike, that hits the two people clinging to the wreckage of this boat, there's nothing classified about that. It should be released, and the public should be able to see it. I mean, they're very anxious to release the rest of the videos, to Senator Rosen's point. They seem to like to show that. There's no reason they can't release this and show the public other than the fact that they know it is damning to their entire argument.
If we had collapsed time and you were just a month away from becoming the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, as you may be a year from now, what would be happening that would be different in this investigation? What would the Defense Department know? What would Pete Hegseth know was coming on day one of your chairmanship?
Subpoenas to make sure that they turn over the information to us that they're supposed to turn over to us and that they haven't. Beginning with this is something, as I forget if you mentioned it at your broadcast or I heard it somewhere else. We just passed the defense bill where we fence a certain amount of Pete Hegseth's travel dollars until he turns that information over to us. All of the information surrounding these strikes, the videos, but also importantly, the documentation supporting it. Who made a decision based on what? We should see that documentation. And then we would bring in everybody up and down the chain of command. Look, it's a basic investigation, and I don't trust Hegseth, all right? I don't trust him to tell us the truth. So I'd like to go up and down the chain of command, everyone who was involved in it, and say, what did you see? There was a report, I think, in the press today about a later strike in October, the one where 2 survivors were actually picked up, where there's a whistleblower complaint out there now saying that there was an order given to destroy all of the records and all of the video around those 2 people being picked up, questioned, and released. So we'd go up and down the chain of command to try to find what the truth was instead of simply taking the word of Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth for it. And I think the country's owed that. You know, what's going on here and why? We're owed an explanation and the legal justification for all of these actions.
Congressman Adam Smith, thank you very much for leading off our discussions tonight.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you. And coming up today, a 3rd judge ordered the Epstein files under his jurisdiction to be